That is truly disgusting. You get these pus-filled blisters. They're called buboes. Some of them get as big as eggs, and eventually they burst, releasing pus everywhere. It's pretty gross.
Within 4 days of the first symptoms, the plague enters its final stage.
Your body is a mass of weeping pustules, and your circulation in your fingertips shuts down and dies. Hence, the Black Death.
The bubonic plague spread rapidly across Europe, bringing with it a wave of death. And the hardest hit were the cities, with their crowded, dirt-infested populations. One medieval monk, called Brother John Klin, describes the effects of the Black Death in the following eyewitness account.
The plague carried off almost every inhabitant, from towns, cities, and castles, so that there was hardly a soul left to dwell there. Hardly ever did only one die in any house, but commonly husband and wife together, with their children, passed along the same way, namely the way of death.
By the beginning of the 15th century, Europe's population drops to less than half of what it was before the Black Death. Little wonder that nearly every aspect of medieval life changes forever.
People's attitude to the church, to death, to life itself were transformed.
But most importantly, the massive death toll creates huge labor shortages, which is good news for the workers that are left because they can charge more for their services, but it also sparks a whole raft of labor-saving technologies. And one of those technologies is going to change the world. So, where have we got to in our story of the links leading up to the very latest in motorsports?
We began with the heavy plow, which changed the landscape and enabled farmers to grow more food. This fueled the growth of medieval cities, where overcrowding led to the spread of the Black Death, a disease that was about to spark an information revolution.
This is the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. One of the biggest collections of information, of human thought and creativity on the planet.
Here they've got photographs, sound recordings, movies, they even store websites. And they now keep a record of every single message broadcast on Twitter. That's 1 billion tweets a week.
But the most important thing here is still the book.
In this temple of knowledge, there are over 30 million books, and every day it receives another 1,000.
There's more books here than in any other library in the world, on over 800 miles of bookshelves. And they're all the product of a technology that came out of the aftermath of the Black Death.
Back in the 14th century, book production was a tedious business. Every book had to be hand-copied by teams of scribes.
So laborious is the process of copying books that it can take years to create just one. As a result, they're not only incredibly rare, but also phenomenally expensive.
But after the Black Death, things got even worse. With a huge proportion of the population now dead, there just weren't enough skilled scribes to meet the demand.
So what's needed is a way to speed up the process of copying books, to make it less labor-intensive. And that's exactly what happens with the appearance of an invention that would transform not only books, but all of human civilization.
The man who developed that technology was Johannes Gutenberg, a goldsmith from Germany, and by all accounts, something of a wheeler dealer. Back in 1438, the German town of Aachen is a popular destination for religious pilgrims, thanks to its collection of relics. It's believed that viewing a relic in a mirror can enhance its healing power. And this gives Gutenberg the idea of setting up a business making holy mirrors. But a sudden outbreak of the plague puts an end to the flow of pilgrims, leaving Gutenberg in need of a new money-making scheme.
So I bet you know what comes next. Gutenberg invents the printing press, right? Well, kind of. You see, Gutenberg didn't invent printing. That idea had been around for centuries.
Gutenberg's real innovation was a way of printing using thousands of individual letters. Movable type. I'm here to meet expert Stan Nelson and discover how it was done.
This is a more normal situation.
The first step is carving a letter by hand, called a punch.
A complete set of these punches took about a half a year, sometimes even a year to cut.
But then comes the really clever bit.
What I'm going to do is take this steel punch and hammer it into a piece of copper, and from the impression, I'm going to cast the type.
Okay.
You
Wow.
can see it's sinking into the copper. So I need a type mold, and that's what this tool is.
So you take the punch out of steel, hammer it into the copper, then you put the copper in the bottom of the mold.
That's correct. So the metal will enter and fill this cavity, and that's how you get a piece of type.
Well, can I give it a try?
Now just go ahead and try to fill it quickly. That's the key thing.
Okay. All right, moment of truth.
There it is. Perfect. Look at that.
All right.
Nice job. For a beginner, that's excellent work.
Cool, check it out.
Yeah.
It's a little letter A.
Now I can create dozens of copies of my letter in no time. And since they're cast from the same mold, all the letters fit together perfectly to form a page of type. This was the Gutenberg Revolution.
Once Gutenberg had perfected his method, he set about printing his first run of books. And being a savvy businessman, he chose the best-selling book of all time, the Holy Bible.
Here at the Library of Congress, they have one of the few complete Gutenberg Bibles still in existence. It's one of their most precious treasures, quite literally priceless.
This is a fairly unusual opportunity for you, even more so for me, in a way.
Well, so how often do you bring this out?
This is only the second time I've actually worked with it in a setting such as this.
The actual text itself absolutely pops off the page. I mean, it looks as clean as you'd expect any modern book to be, and that's 500 years ago.
But what makes this book so special isn't just its quality. It's the fact that it was produced in a fraction of the time it took to make a handwritten book.
The impact of the Gutenberg Bible is profound. You think of what comes from printing, scientific revolution. I have investigated this. These are my results. Reproduce it. Now takes a matter of months or years as opposed to decades of copying. We like to think of this as the first book printed in Europe with movable metal type, but it's actually the start of a revolution.
That's amazing.
Within 50 years, there were 20 million printed books. It was an explosion of knowledge unprecedented in human history.
The printing press triggers a revolution comparable to the birth of the internet, because for the first time, one individual can become a master of many different disciplines, from arts to sciences, philosophy to engineering, people that we call polymaths, or Renaissance men.
These multi-talented individuals transformed our view of the world, whether through their art, like Leonardo da Vinci, or science, like Galileo Galilei. But another less well-known Renaissance man was the Dutchman, Simon Steven. By his 30s, he was an expert in an extraordinary number of fields. He was writing on mathematics, economics, engineering, even music. But his most exciting invention was probably when he took a wheeled carriage and stuck a sail on it to make the land yacht.
At the time, Stebbins' land yachts were the fastest machines on Earth. They caused quite a stir.
The land yacht was a perfect example of Simon Stebbins' genius. He took scientific principles learned from printed books and applied them in new and practical ways.
But his most significant innovation was in finding a way of harnessing the wind, not just to go fast, but for something much more important. Now, to show you this next technology, I've got to climb this ladder. "20 stories high. This may not look like it, but it's a power station. It produces 1.5 megawatts of electricity, and it does it all without consuming any fuel or producing any pollution.
And to ensure I make it to the top, I'm attached to a safety cable running the entire length of the ladder.
It's kind of astonishing to think this is a giant metal tube that I'm climbing up.
Wow! You can see for miles in every direction. Latched in, so if I fall off, I don't go anywhere. Woo-hoo-hoo! This is a wind turbine.
We are up here now.
This is just incredible. And these blades are just huge. To be frank, it's a little bit frightening. You can really feel the wind up here. Back in the 16th century, wind was one of the most important sources of power. And what Simon Stebbins did was make it even more productive with an ingenious innovation.
Now, the blades are just out here, slowly rotating, and they drive this shaft, which connects to the gearbox. For every rotation you get here, you get 78 rotations here, which results in 1,000 rotations per minute. Now, those aren't just random numbers. Everything here is designed for maximum efficiency.
But before Simon Stebbins, gearing was done by trial and error, which meant that windmills weren't very efficient and wasted a lot of energy. It was Stebbins who realized that you could use mathematics and engineering to make gearing more efficient.
Stebbins knew mathematically designed windmills could do 3 times the work of the original design, which means a huge increase in output. As a result, more and more windmills start springing up all over Europe.
So where are we up to? We began with the medieval heavy plow, which helped create the food surplus that enabled the growth of Europe's cities, where filthy conditions linked to the spread of the Black Death. This led to a shortage of workers, which helped trigger the invention of Gutenberg's printing process that produced the books that led to polymaths like Simon Stebbins, the man who perfected the windmill, which was about to inspire a revolutionary technology.